Hi guys and welcome to another video. So this time around I'm doing a bit of a mix up for this month and I'm doing a mid-month wrap up purely because already I have hit quite a high number of books that I've read and I am probably going to forget the majority of plot lines or character names, and I just thought this would be a good way of trying to make sure that I can avoid that. So my first read of the month was Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa, and in this we follow Yumiko, who has managed to escape with a piece of a scroll which is extremely detrimental to ensuring that a demon does not break loose. Unfortunately she ends up having a lot of struggles with this and finds a samurai called Cage, and he is struggling with whether he should fulfill his duty of collecting the pieces of the scroll or whether he can actually protect Yumiko. Now I listened to this via audiobook and also physically read it. I have to admit I did enjoy the audiobook a lot more than physically reading. I found I got quite bored along the way. I know that sounds awful, but I do feel like it is a bit of a building block for the trilogy. I have Soul of the Sword to read next, which I do plan on continuing with, and I also have Night of the Dragon to read because that is a review book. As I said, I do take this as a building block. I do feel like Soul of the Sword could be better. Unfortunately this didn't hit the spot for me. This is a 3 stars, so not overall bad, but just didn't quite excite me that much. Next up was Blood Heir. Now I know that there were a few reviews on this before it was published this year. Last year there was a lot of controversy with this, however I decided to go and read it blindly. I was aware of the controversy, I was aware of the issues that people had brought up with the book, however I decided that I needed to make my own mind up on this, and yeah, I just wanted my own opinion before pushing it to one side. The fact that she was able to publish it this year after reading through and deciding whether people were right or wrong, I think is a spectacular thing to do. This was loosely based on Anastasia, I had heard. However, I genuinely don't get those vibes. Ramson, who is the male lead character, did give off Dimitri vibes because of being a con man and because of being just generally charming but a pain in the ass at the same time, and the main female character being called Anna. So I definitely think that this was a slow burner for me. I did enjoy the start. The middle drifted off a little bit. I was starting to think that maybe I would unhaul it as soon as I'd finished it. However, the last few chapters did save it for me and I did end up thoroughly enjoying the overall experience. More so the last few chapters, but the overall experience wasn't as bad as I had thought in the middle. So in this we follow a girl, as I've said, her name is Anna, and she has an affinity which is a little bit like specific magic. So there are Aphanites who have an affinity to flesh, an affinity to blood, and a few others. I think there's like water and the elements sort of thing. However, on her path she bumps into a very handsome crime lord called Ramson, who figures out that if he treats the situation correctly he might be able to use it to his advantage, and he may be able to pay off all of his debts with a Aphanite. However, he is questioning what sort of Aphanite she is and how powerful she is, and nobody knows just how powerful she is. So I was really intrigued with the whole affinity magic, and I would have liked for it to have been delved into a little bit more. The way this ended, it does appear that there will be a sequel, which I do hope there is, because as I said, the way it ended, I was really happy and thoroughly enjoyed the final few chapters. It would be nice if there was a sequel for maybe a bit more in-depth conversations about the affinities and the type of magic that they are able to do. This was a 3 stars for me. I couldn't push it to a 4 because I just had to remember that whilst my enjoyment was at the beginning and the end, I didn't thoroughly enjoy the middle. The plot was a little bit lacking for me. It almost seemed like they were on a journey, they were here, they were there, they did this, they did that, which is fine, but yeah, lost its luster in the middle. Now my next read was actually an ebook, and that is Starfish by Akemi Dawn Bowman. I loved this book. It was a 5 stars across the board for me. I cried, I laughed, I got warm fuzzy feelings inside, and it was just read at the right time for me, I think. So we follow a young girl who is half Asian, and she is trying her hardest to make her way in life. She wants to get to an art college, and it is the most prestigious art college that you can get to in the country. Now she has to battle with the fact that she has a mentally and emotionally abusive mother at home. She is constantly being told that she doesn't look like the normal white girl. She doesn't look pretty, she is fat, she is not like her mother used to be when she was younger. She's nothing like her mother appearance wise, and everything comes down to the appearance for her mother. To the point where there's even a section of her mum going through yearbooks and trying to go through the pictures and point out who she thinks got crowned the most good looking male and the most good looking female of the year. So there are trigger warnings for emotional and mental abuse. There is also trigger warnings for sexual assault, sexual abuse, as she does have to deal with something that happened in her younger years, which was sort of brushed under the carpet. This doesn't go into graphic detail, but I do just want to put out the fact that there are trigger warnings for it. It is not just casually mentioned, it is spoken about quite a bit, but yeah, there aren't any graphic details, just the bare minimum to give you the idea of what happened and what she has had to deal with as time has gone on. So our lovely girl is called Keiko, and she thoroughly enjoys painting and drawing, and it is just her life. Her 2 brothers have other hobbies and outlets for their creativity, but we focus mainly on Keiko. She is also harbouring this massive responsibility of feeling like she needs to look after the entire family. She even has a job so she can help her brothers out with bits and pieces and help with the food. She is not allowed to go out partying, she's not allowed to stay out past a certain time. She has no chance of having any friends around unless her mum specifically says so. And there are just a lot of strict rules within the household, which I feel like they were sort of the strict rules that you would expect for a teenager. They are the sort of rules that you would expect a parent to hand out. However, they weren't done in the best intention. They didn't have the best intentions. She didn't have Keiko's best interests at heart. She was doing it all with an ulterior motive. She didn't want people in the house if it was messy, because she didn't want people to see that her life wasn't perfect like she was making out it was. I really enjoyed seeing Keiko get her independence, become stronger and deal with issues. I like the fact that she did not ever make herself a victim, and she also, regardless of how many times she could have actually blamed other people for certain things, she didn't. She owned the situation and she dealt with it, and she made a life for her. Also, now that we come towards the end, there is another trigger warning which I feel like might be a little bit spoilery, so if you are sensitive to certain things, then feel free to DM me and I will give you the warnings myself and you can make your decision from there. I also listened to American Panda on Scribd, and that was sort of an off the cuff one. I had been watching BookTube and it was very late at night, and I had seen that there was somebody else reading American Panda, and I thought, oh, I wonder whether that's on Scribd, it sounds really good. And I literally opened my Scribd app up and it popped up, and I thought, oh okay, there's only 6 hours to listen to it, so that's fine. And I absolutely devoured it. It was a brilliant audio book. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't to the point where I think I will go out and purchase the book like I have done with Starfish. I think maybe it's an easy listening book, so you can put it on while you're doing other things and you don't have to fully concentrate. That it's not something that goes massively in depth. However, there are deep conversations that have been had during the audiobook, and I didn't find those difficult to listen to. I didn't find it heartbreaking to listen to, even though what they were talking about was very emotional. I'm not sure whether because I listened to it via audiobook, it just didn't hit me as hard. I felt for the characters. I realised that it would be a difficult time for the characters, but I just didn't get hit emotionally by it all. I don't know whether reading it physically would have done any different, but I do still fully recommend it, and it was a 4 stars for me. Next up is my first read for Believathon, and for that we went to the Poacher's Pocket Inn and we started a new series. So for this one I read Murder, Mazdan, Ladylike by Robin Stephens. I knew that I wanted a murder mystery, and obviously this was going to be the perfect murder mystery for me. I loved Daisy because she was upbeat and raring to go, and then I absolutely hated her because she was vile. She just had to be right all the time, and when she wasn't right, everybody else was to blame. So in this we do follow Hazel and Daisy, and they are creating their own little detective agency whilst at school. It's little things to start off with, like who stole somebody's tie, but Hazel stumbles along to a room and finds a dead teacher. However, when she goes to find Daisy and they then go to find the body is no longer there. So not only do they have to find the body, but they also have to prove that there has been a murder, full stop. I struggled with the logic to this. I don't understand how it took 2 schoolgirls to figure out 2 murders. I don't understand it. I also don't understand how one person can commit 2 crimes and nobody in a boarding school other than 2 schoolgirls pick up on anything wrong. It doesn't make sense. However, it was fun to read, and I do understand that I am not the target audience. As a younger reader, I do think that you maybe, if you don't look as deep as older readers do, then you would thoroughly enjoy this. It is also an absolutely stunning cover with beautiful sprayed edges that match, and I think that also did it for me. I am gutted that I didn't thoroughly enjoy it. The writing was quite juvenile, but then that's to be expected because it was supposed to be from the perspective of Hazel. There are a lot of juvenile comments, and you do almost, when you're reading it, you end up with a child's voice in your head. A little bit like when I was reading Tracy Beaker, that's how it felt. So unfortunately for me, this was a 2. I did originally give it 3, but then I realised I was being a little bit generous, so I bumped it down to a 2, and I don't know whether I will be purchasing the rest of the series. I may see if I can find an audiobook for the second to see whether that is any different, because I don't understand how they would continue that sort of detective agency within a boarding school already when they have already found out things. So yeah, unfortunately not for me, but as I said, this definitely would work for a younger reader, and I have no problems in passing this on to a younger reader who may enjoy it a little bit more than I did. Then my next read was Midnight Hour by Benjamin Reed and Laura Trinder, and in this we follow Emily, who ends up trying to go and find her parents who have vanished, and they have miraculously disappeared into the land of the Midnight Hour. This is a place that is filled with magic and monsters, and she just wants to know what on earth is going on. However, she decides that she is the one to save her parents, so she is going to toddle off with her pack of sandwiches and her little hedgehog, who is my favourite part of the book, in order to save them. I enjoyed this. I wouldn't rave about it, but I did enjoy it. It was fun, it was cute, Emily was absolutely adorable, and yeah, unfortunately I don't have a lot to say on the book. It was just a cute, fun, fast read. Then I ended up doing a reread of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone by J.K. Rowling. I don't even think I should bother writing this because it is magical, it is fun, it reminds me of when my mum used to read this to us when we were younger, and it's just lovely. I did find myself picking up on a few little bits and pieces which I was almost making mental notes of things that were different to the book compared to the movie. However, I obviously don't write it down for that because that isn't anything to do with the book. It is, we'll ignore the movie. But I definitely think that I give this a 4 stars. The reason I give this a 4 stars is because I know from reading the series already, personally, as much as I love how the magic is introduced, I definitely enjoy the books the darker they get. So Chamber of Secrets is probably one of my least favourite, but then moving into like Prisoner of Azkaban, that is when it really starts to get enjoyable for me. But yeah, so I'm really pleased that I reread it. I was a little bit upset with how quick I managed to get through it. I think it was like 2 days and I got through it really quickly. When I was younger, it seemed to feel like this book took forever to finish. But then thinking about it, when I was younger, my mom would read a couple of chapters before we went to bed, so it probably did take forever to read. So yes, I am going to stick with a 4-star review for that one. Then one of my most recent finishes is Orion Lost, and this is a sci-fi middle grade, and we are following a group of young 13-year-olds who have to basically save their family's asses again. I got Aurora Rising vibes from this when I first read the synopsis of it. However, when I was reading it, it just sort of seemed to be the same trope, and that was that friends became family. So it was sort of like misfits, we were all put together, they were drawn together. and they ended up having to save the world, save their families, save themselves, and then they became like family. Again, this is another one where I wasn't hating it, but I didn't love it up until the last 4 or 5 chapters. The last 4 or 5 chapters absolutely slayed it for me. I really enjoyed this. This is the middle grade monthly for this month, and I definitely think I'm going to take part in the live show. I definitely want to see what everybody else thinks about it, just because I have heard so many good things about this book, and I sort of feel like I'm the only one that had a bit of a roller coaster time with it. I know that I have spoken to a couple of people who have thoroughly enjoyed it the entire way through and thought this book is amazing. But yeah, it just seemed to be that I thought it was a good start, thought it was okay, mediocre, and then bam, the ending hit it for me. So yeah, fun. I also read Girl with Space in Her Heart, and that is an ebook that somebody kindly gifted to me on Kindle. Now, this is about a young girl who has witnessed her mum and dad arguing and resulted in a split. She holds on to this book that her dad gave her the night that he left. And it is all about space and about the stars and the moon and different planets, space. However, at school she is asked to, throughout the year, do a journal of poems. Her poems are heartbreaking. This little girl is hurting and she doesn't want to tell anybody because she doesn't want to cause them any stress. She is an absolutely adorable little girl, and the book did break my heart. I think that I want to purchase the physical copy. I feel like it is a very important book for young children to read or to have read to them. Probably better to have read to them so that they are able to know that it is okay to have the conversation with adults about how they are feeling. She carries around this suitcase of worries in her head, and she says that sometimes at night she has nightmares, and she tells her mum that it's just a really bad dream. She doesn't remember what was in it, when really she's having a nightmare that she is slowly being crushed by this suitcase of At night times she has bad dreams, and when she wakes up screaming and her mum comes in to tell her she's okay, she just tells her mum that she doesn't remember what was in the dream, it was just scary. However, she divulges into it a bit more and tells the audience that basically she dreams that this suitcase of worries is slowly crushing her and she's unable to breathe. As a child, that must be terrifying, and I'm not going to lie, that made me cry. So pleased that I feel like this was dealt with in a really sensitive way. I feel like the topic was broached really sensitively and really well. This is definitely a fantastic read. I do recommend it. I would probably give it a 4 stars just because it didn't hit the 5-star mark for me, just because I felt like for the majority of it I was crying. I feel like maybe it's because I am a mother and it was very emotional for me to even consider the fact that when my children get to that age they might feel like that. So yeah, definitely well done to bring in mental health to the forefront, especially within younger children. And yes, it was a really good read. It was also quite cheap on Kindle, so if you want to try it out, have a look. And so there you have it. That is my mid-month wrap up. I am really pleased with how much reading I have managed to get done. I have been flying through books like nobody's business, which is quite unusual for me. I feel like I have done well so far with the Asian Readathon. I currently only have Spin the Dawn left to read. My Believathon TBR, I have 2 books left, which is Wild Spark and Spark. They are on my set path. And then anything else around that area, I think I can kind of work in the final week of May. But yes, I have had a good start to the month. So if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like down below and subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you in the next one. Bye!